Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Crypto Gaming Institute podcast. My name is Ben Gothard, and I'm your host today, as per usual. And today we have the honor of speaking with not one, but two people from Thunder Games. Desiree, Jack, thank y'all so much for coming on the show today. I'm so excited to have y'all on here. And we talked a little bit before about how y'all are the first Bitcoin game founders on the show. And frankly, I really don't know that much about Bitcoin gaming, so I'm excited to learn myself. So welcome to the show. So glad y'all are here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I think we get both of us are pretty diehard Bitcoiners. But I think it's good to branch out and, talk to new folks and tell people about what we're working on. And we just launched a new game today. So I'm like pretty beat from just I'm sure Jack is too, but we're still so excited to tell folks about it and definitely want to tell people outside of the Bitcoin community a little bit about what we're working on.
Right on. So let's dive right in. I'd love to kind of hear y'all's story of how did you get to the place where you were building this really cool platform that you're building. What's really like the origin story of how y'all got to this place?
I think, Jack, if you want to start, because, Jack and I have known each other for quite some time, but I just recently joined Thunder Games. So Jack is really like the original founder. So I think the story starts there, and then I can kind of chime in and how I got involved and like why I thought this was just such a massive opportunity. Wait, Jack, I can't hear you.
Wait, Jack, I think you're muted. This is the fun of doing things live, folks. Still can't hear you yet, but that's all right. All right, I have a quick joke for the audience while we get these tech issues sorted out. Okay, what cat do you never play cards with? Desiree, do you know?
I have no idea. I'm so bad at these type of things.
It's a cheetah.
This is super funny. I like it. I like it. Which is also good because our new game features a cat. So I was like, oh, maybe it's like our cat Spark. But I don't know, Jack, if you're still not good, I can
You hear me
you're
now?
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we are.
I'm a tech wizard. Yeah, that was a great joke. You didn't hear me laughing because I had audio issues, but I was like laughing profusely through that. So yeah, well, I was just going to give a quick background of Thunder Games, basically. So how it all started was I've been like following Bitcoin from 2012, 2013. I can't even remember the exact year or date I started. I remember the blockchain was like 8 GB big or something like that when I first downloaded it and thinking, whoa, that's massive. This is never going to work. Like, this is taking so long to download. Who's going to want to use this? Anyway, so like I've always been interested in Bitcoin for such a long time. And I previously used to, well, I still have like some other mobile games that I released on Google Play and the App Store. And many times it's happened to me that either Google or Apple were like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Or they were like, this game's not allowed on the store, or like the rules have changed now, you can't do this. And I was getting sick of it, to be honest. So I was like, how can I use Bitcoin to get payments? Because then I don't get the 30% taken away from me. And I just love Bitcoin. How can I get the money without having to go through the stores? So I did an experiment, which was one of my kind of prototype games I had, and I added Bitcoin with the Lightning Network into it. And I used something called BTC Pay Server to enable, like, create a shop in my game using Bitcoin, payable by Lightning, in July 2019. And I put it on Reddit, and a load of people downloaded it. So, and like started sending me Bitcoin. I was like, whoa, this is super cool. Like, so many people were just like sending me money, and it's like instant. Like, normally when you get paid through Apple or Google, it takes 45 days to receive the payment minus the 30% that they take. So it's so like cool to just like get all this money straight away. So I was like, there's definitely something here. And then there was the first Lightning Network conference that was held in Berlin. I think there was only like 500 people there or something, but I was like, I've got to go to this conference and meet some people and like find out more about this technology and learn. And I did a couple of courses while I was there to learn about Lightning. And I took our first game, which is out now, currently still out now, which is called Bitcoin Bounce. So I made the game Bitcoin Bounce in a couple of weeks before the Lightning Network conference as a icebreaker. So I could talk, like, go, hey, I've made this game, you can win Bitcoin in it. Like, here you go. So this game was something, Bitcoin Bounce was something I built just so literally could have something to talk to people. But like, it was so well received at the conference, and I was like, yeah, I've got to do this. So as soon as I got home, I set up the Thunder Games company. Like literally the next day, like the next working day, Thunder Games was born. So since then, I've been like doing like esports with mobile games and tournaments, and just working on Lightning technology for the past couple of years. Because obviously I didn't really realize at the time, but it was like super early. But yeah, no, I met Desiree along that journey where she was at the Lightning Network conference doing promoting her products that her company was building. But she was very interested in Bitcoin gaming as a use case. So we kind of met maybe 3 months into Thunder Game starting. We started talking about Bitcoin and gaming. So super pleased. Like over time, she's kind of moved into the Bitcoin space more, Bitcoin gaming space more and more. And now she's like 100% all in on it.
I am sorry if you hear my dad screaming in the background. He was playing our game earlier. No, I am 100% all in. So yeah, I mean, that's Jack. And I don't know, he doesn't probably remember, but I was one of the MCs for the conference, but clearly he totally missed that. But yeah, so I was working at a company called Lightning Labs, and we were working on the Lightning Network, which for those who aren't aware is a second layer scaling solution for Bitcoin. So it makes Bitcoin faster, cheaper, and easier to use. So kind of like the Visa for Bitcoin, if you will. And so I started working at Lightning Labs like 4 years ago, and one of the things that was always really interesting to me, because we're always thinking about, how do we bring more people to Bitcoin? How do we get Bitcoin into more people's hands? Like, how do we reach mass adoption? And somewhat selfishly, I had kind of stumbled onto like the use case of gaming, and there's lots of great use cases for the Lightning Network, like being podcasting, empowering like the creator economy, et cetera, et cetera. But I love video games, and selfishly I was like, but this also, there's something there. And as most folks are aware, with any it is like kind of a process to get your first whatever cryptocurrency you're buying. Even just like Bitcoin, most folks like first interaction with Bitcoin is going to Coinbase, and you have to upload a picture of you with your passport and the date, and then you have to sacrifice your firstborn child, and like go through this entire very tons of friction process. And with some cryptocurrencies, it's even, the barrier is even higher. And so for me it was like, I think that's very scary to people, especially like introducing my friends and my family to Bitcoin. And so I was just seeing what Jack was building and what other folks were building in this space, and it was, oh wow, you can just go download a game and you can play a game that's a great game, and you can have fun, and then you just earn Bitcoin, and then you're a Bitcoiner, right? And like the KYC stuff happens down the line once you've like reached the threshold, but at that point you already have this, your skin is already in the game pretty much. So then you need to like find a wallet and figure it out, but you're more incentivized to do that because you actually already own your Bitcoin, which I think is incredibly powerful. So for me, being on the business side of Lightning Labs, it became just like this, oh wow, look at this use case. We can really like support this ecosystem of people who are building these games, and this will further really the network effects of Bitcoin adoption. And so that's where I first got interested in it. And then, I had moderated a panel at that conference on gaming on the Lightning Network, and then, had planned on doing some fun stuff with a couple of conferences in early 2019, and those were obviously canceled. And so, we started a monthly esports tournament that was just kind of showcasing what different companies and what different people in the Bitcoin space were building. And that really took off. People really loved it. And that was kind of a collaboration between myself, Jack, and some other folks at a company called Zebedee. And like Jack and I met in VR for the first time ever. That's how Jack and I, our first meeting. So kind of funny, like being in a VR headset, but it's kind of just history ever since. And then, what became extremely interesting to me as I saw Jack grow the company and, see his numbers just become incredibly impressive for the Bitcoin community was, there's also something to be said about like having these apps be so easily accessible in the App Store and Google Play. These are places that, people are familiar with. They feel safe. Like they can just go to these places and know most of the time that like this is a safe app for me to download. It's not a scam. I'm not going to lose a ton of money here or really any money at all. And so I thought that was really powerful. And then, we really focus on mobile games, and I wasn't particularly interested in mobile games before, but as I started doing a little bit more research, when I took some time off after my last job, I was like, holy shit, like, whoa, mobile gaming. I had no idea. I mean, looking into it's like 60%, over 60% of the entire gaming market is made up of mobile gaming. And that's larger than desktop and console gaming combined, which is just like crazy, and it's just growing. And so, just really seeing the potential for this market to grow, and then adding real world value back into those games, and really just fixing the value in games with Bitcoin, and not kind of making it a heavier solution set with like coin or like, tokens and all this and that, and really just focusing on fixing like the transactions in games. I was like, I really, really think there's something here. And so, obviously Jack is amazing, and he had kind of pulled together a team of like really great, just like game developers. They weren't like, doing Bitcoin or crypto stuff before, but once Jack told them, they saw the value and, brought them on, have someone who has years of experience in behavioral psychology and really thinking about like in-game economies and mechanics. And, I think he was really building something incredible. And so he asked me to come on board, and, it's really been kind of history ever since. It's not been too long, but we're moving really fast and super, super excited. And Bitcoin gaming is small, but like I hope, to open it up and like show other people outside of Bitcoin what we're working on, and hope it will encourage other people to consider building on Bitcoin.
So to really kind of distill this and make sure that we're all on the same page, because frankly, this is a new world to me as well. And so I love being I love not being the smartest person in the room. Y'all are definitely the smartest person in this room, or people in this room. And so when it comes to like the Lightning Network and building on top of Bitcoin and building apps and building games on top of Bitcoin, how does that work from a logistics perspective? Like for other games, it's usually like, okay, well, you're building on like, let's say a layer 2, and that's kind of the bedrock of it, and maybe that's kind of how the gas fees are paid to in order to facilitate the transactions within the game. But then you're incentivized to launch your own tokens and NFTs, and you have this game economy, and you get players, and that's kind of understood. But more on what y'all are doing, like how do the logistics actually work there? Like what constitutes a Bitcoin game?
Yeah, well, I get it's quite a different concept, because Bitcoin is really just it's a commodity in and of itself. So it's really I don't really look at it like we're building on Bitcoin. It's like we're plugging Bitcoin into our game. So like we can add in a super hard asset that everyone wants into our game economy that's like transferable between people within it. We don't have to like bake it's not like part of the game, but it's like a new asset in the game. Like we had virtual currencies in games. We have like user generated content in games that's like in a custodial manner where people could create things and it would appear in the games for other people to use. And so now we've got this like hard asset that's in the game that can be transferred in and out of the game. And it's like putting money into a game that's super like with zero friction. So whereas before Bitcoin in games, you could have like tournaments in your game or esports, but it kind of was not fluent into the game. It was like you had to, let's say you had a game where you could just win some money by playing the game. You would have to like save up maybe like $10 before it's logistically possible to cash out. So that might take in a mobile game like 6 months to get to the threshold to cash out. But who's going to want to bother doing that? Or like, it turns into a job. Like who plays a game for mobile game for 6 months? Like not many people. So, but with Bitcoin, you can get that lead time to being able to cash out is like instant. So you could cash out one Satoshi immediately from the game. So you're having a conversation with the game rather than like just waiting for that point where you can receive your value from the game. So Bitcoin games is more like optimizing and like leveling up basically existing gaming economies that were based upon real money, but with now the best money that ever existed in the history of the world.
Right on. Okay, cool. So then let's talk about what y'all are seeing as far as the rise of mobile. We talked about that a little bit, but I'm very interested in diving deep into that because just from like a user adoption standpoint, there are people on the planet who don't have internet yet. And so they have to get internet. And then once they get internet, like what is going to be the first thing that they get? It's going to be a cell phone. It's not going to be an Xbox or a massive gaming computer. Like it's gonna be a phone. So mobile gaming is definitely gonna take off. But what are y'all seeing from your perspective of actually building games? As far as like how are you thinking about that? And maybe break down like your current ecosystem and how you've built around this idea.
I'm gonna chime in first, but I'm sure like Jack will have a much more interesting answer. But I think like one thing that's interesting if you like take what you've just said even further, that the first thing someone gets, the first device that someone gets is a phone, is really powerful. Because I think from there, when you're thinking about these people who are just getting access to the internet and just getting phones, like the next thing that these people don't have that they need is a bank account. So much of the world just remains unbanked to this day, and I think that's something that's incredible that Bitcoin really solves, is a lot of these people can't get bank accounts, like, for whatever reason. And, like as we're even seeing in El Salvador, there's so many people who are now able to be a part of the global economy because of Bitcoin, because they can simply download a Bitcoin wallet and, that's effectively their bank. And obviously, it's somewhere like El Salvador and especially El Zante, it is very easy because it's now legal tender in El Salvador, and so people can, and they do. They transact in Bitcoin everywhere at McDonald's, literally everywhere. I got surf lessons using Bitcoin, which is incredible. But then you think about it, and there's companies, like there's a Bitcoin gift card rewards company called Bitrefill. The number one selling item in their gift cards were gift cards for the mobile game Free Fire, which is like a very low resource intensive mobile game. And so you're kind of seeing these trends happen in parallel to one another. So it's like, if these people, the thing that they're wanting to spend their money on is mobile games, what if they had a game where they could actually take that like effort they're putting into the games and actually earn real value, and then have that in their phone, which is their bank account? And so that in and of itself is the creation of this beautiful little circular economy that's happening in the palm of someone's hand, which is why I think Bitcoin will be so powerful, and these Bitcoin games will be so powerful because it's just immediately has value, right? And I think obviously there's a lot going on with so many other cryptocurrencies in these games, and I think it's great, but there is a lot of steps that have to be taken until you are actually then transacting with value that can be taken out of the game and used in the real world. And I think Bitcoin is the closest thing. And if you believe in the thesis that Jack and I are totally water coolered in, is that like Bitcoin will be the global currency of the future. I think that Bitcoin gaming is just a really logical step to happen in parallel with everything else that we've been talking about.
It's also like, just to add on something to that, it's kind of crazy to think that you could have a Bitcoin game like one of ours where you can earn some Bitcoin and then go to like McDonald's and buy a Big Mac with your mobile game, basically. Like, when's that ever happened before? It's just crazy to think like you could use your game to buy something, like, because you've got value in it. You don't even have to transfer it out the wallet into another wallet. You could be like, oh, I've got some money in Bitcoin Bounce, I'll just buy my burger with that. Like, it's just weird.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So we're seeing right now in, for example, the Philippines, millions of people playing, and just the household name, which I'm really glad it's already a household name, is Axie, right? So we're seeing millions of people there, but that's not even touching on this idea of having Bitcoin integrated so deeply into the game, because just like we're saying, I mean, the more people that adopt this, it's almost like bringing people in by solving a deeply rooted need to have the ability to transact and store value, but we're doing it through games here. Like, that's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like Bitcoin has different problems to, say, a game like Axie, where that's built its own economy and its own like tokens and incentives for people to want to like gain those tokens. And it's quite crazy how that thing has grown. And there's all these like people basically, like giving the scholars the Axies to play the game is just nuts. But like with a Bitcoin only game where the only thing in it is Bitcoin, it does limit the game in terms of like you can't generate value from nothing because it's a closed system. Like you can only, whatever value comes into the game, if it's advertisements or people buying stuff for the game, that it's limited to what you can send out. So it's a different problem to solve because it's hard money. You can't turn it into something it's not. So it doesn't,
Right.
with Bitcoin, until there's NFTs or something like that on top of it, you can't create this value that's subjective. Like, let's say,
Like, for example, the SLP, you can't just mint it and reward it to players and then kind of on the back end build the value of that. What you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is the amount of Bitcoin that enters the ecosystem minus the amount of Bitcoin that leaves the ecosystem is the amount of Bitcoin in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's closed. It's a closed loop. So it's a different problem to solve, where you're trying to make the game fun enough, like really fun for people to play anyway. It's not play to earn. It's like free to win. Like, you can play the game and you might win something extra, like some Bitcoin if you're really good at it. So it's very much more like the esports avenue of entertainment and events, that kind of thing. Whereas like Axie is more like playing, like it's almost on the level of working, like people literally are writing in their CV like about it. So it's kind of it's very different. They're not the same. That's one thing that's different is, Bitcoin is completely closed.
Which, I think the Axie Infinity stuff is incredible. It's really amazing what they've built, and I love it. And if I could figure out how to do it and throw down the money to like get into it, I would. It's great, but I think Jack kind of hinted at something too, which I think is what makes building these games on Bitcoin harder is because, Bitcoin was set out to really solve real world problems. Like, minting money is super fun until inflation happens, right? Where are we seeing? I mean, who's like one of the greatest money printers of all time right now? The U.S. Fed, and look what it's doing to our country. And I think that's something. Obviously, games are a great place to experiment with economies and see what works and what doesn't work. But when you just from the beginning create those natural bounds that Bitcoin's non-limited supply or its capped supply creates, I think is like really interesting. And I think, it will last for like it will be like a longer sustaining game where it's like, you're creating economies based on, sound, like fundamentals of money rather than just like it's just easy to print money, right? Like that's just so simple. So we are doing something that's a lot harder, and I think that's why it's still so early for Bitcoin gaming, and why we don't see so many people building on it. But I think the time will come when folks do come over, and I think that's something that we think a lot about at Thunder Games is how do we structure these game economies. And I know some other folks who are building this space are thinking similarly.
That's exactly the next thing I was going to ask is let's break down the ecosystem. So how does capital enter this, or how does Bitcoin enter the system, and then how do players actually earn, and then I assume it's some sort of cash out mechanism, but I'm still interested in learning the specifics of that. So how does it, like, what's the flow of Bitcoin within the ecosystem of Thunder Games?
So we do mobile games, so that we have the traditional monetization methods for that, which is advertisements, which tend to be rewarded advertisements. So if you want to earn extra gems or something, you can watch a video ad and earn the gems. Then we have in-app purchases where people can buy more levels, or they can like remove adverts, just the normal traditional things. We also have sponsorship in our games because we're a Bitcoin games company and not many people do that. A lot of people want to sponsor us and want their wallet to be like the wallet that everyone's downloading. Like we're an onboarding tool for a lot of these companies, for exchanges and that kind of thing, because we can, people are hungry for those products. So we have that extra monetization. And then basically we simply work out how the economy of the game, like how much money do we earn in the game for per user, so we know how healthy the game is. And then per user we have like an estimate of how much we want to give away in prize money on average, so we can just make sure that we're not giving away too much, because otherwise we'll make zero. So we just give away a small percentage basically of the money that we bring in to give back to the users. So it's almost like a rewards platform in gaming where, if you're super engaged and like very loyal, you'll get this kind of like reward point, which is Bitcoin, and you get to earn it in a fun way through games.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we're experimenting with too is, I mean, really the monetization model for mobile gaming, like the traditional model, it works. Like you can make hand over fist, like money hand over fist. It's quite incredible, at least from what I've seen. But, I don't know if it's the best experience for the player. And I think maybe that detracts people from playing mobile games. So are things that like we are rethinking about, like, you're served an ad, right? Like that's inevitable, but like, can you be rewarded? Can you earn Bitcoin for viewing that ad? Like, can you get a part of the share directly? So like, yeah, you can earn some in-game points that we were sharing with you, as Jack said, as part of like that rev share. But can we actually start rewarding people for watching ads, doing things in games? So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of like clever things that we're really thinking about, because like we not only want to like put out world-class mobile games with Bitcoin in it, we want to actually revolutionize the way that people are being rewarded, or being the way that people interact with these mobile games. And I really believe that we can do that through Bitcoin.
So I feel like at some point, if it doesn't already exist, which it totally could, but at some point, I would at least hope that NFTs are going to be on the Bitcoin network. I don't know if that's even the right way to say that, but like hopefully maybe through some scaling solutions or somehow NFTs are built on top, because what I could see is like an extremely interesting way for players to be able to invest more in the game is through skins or cosmetics, because everybody wants to look cool. Everybody wants to show off. All the streamers that are going to be streaming these games, like they're going to want to have their own sweet skins or cosmetics and whatnot. Is that something that y'all have thought about or something that's on your radar? And like, what are the technical constraints or what constraints or are the arguments against that?
Well, I think, there are people who are thinking about this and trying to build these things on top of Bitcoin. There is something called the Liquid sidechain that Blockstream is working on, and folks are minting and issuing NFTs on that. And there's some other interesting protocols like RGB that could make NFTs possible using color coins, but so there is development. It's not quite there, but I think for us, we're okay with like kind of being late entrance into the NFT space, as like risky as that is to say, and it is something we are 100% thinking about, because like I love skins. Like I can be so horrible at a game and I will buy every skin. Like Fall Guys, I'm like, just give me the skins. I don't care. Like I'm awful. You know what I mean? And because I'm one of those like very vain people when it comes to these things. So I 100% see the value, but like I also don't know that I am totally on the end of the spectrum where I'm like, okay, should these things be worth like $500,000, right? Should they be tradable? Like, what should they actually look like in our games? And I think that's something why we're so slow, is that we want to like really approach it with caution, and we want to see what's being done and see how it fits in our games. Because again, like we genuinely believe that like Bitcoin improves these games, and so if we're going to add something else, it also has to make sense for that in-game economy. And I think by doing it right, again, it'll be longer sustaining. So that is 100% something that we're thinking about. But again, just like very much approaching it with caution. And Jack, I mean, we've you can touch on like the things we've thought about so far and like the technicals, but that's kind of like on a high level, like kind of business strategy view.
Yeah, and like from my perspective, like starting Thunder Games 2019, just adding the Bitcoin into the games was like a huge challenge. Not technically adding the Bitcoin, but all the problems that follow when you add Bitcoin, like cheats, trying to basically farm the Bitcoin out of the game, and hackers trying to steal all of your Bitcoin from your node. So like it's just a huge problem in of itself, just adding the Bitcoin stuff. And also because our user base grew from the Lightning Network, so we very much started when it was almost like hobby level kind of a growth at that point. So a lot of our user base is like core Bitcoin people who are maximalist types. I don't apologize, but that's me as well. So that's probably personification of me into the company a little bit. But not a lot of our users ask for NFTs. So like if they were all asking like, Jack, can we have this skin as an NFT? I would then be like thinking, yeah, well, let's sort that. We can do it on Bitcoin with Liquid. So let's do it. But no one's asked me for it. They just say, we need to we want this game, or we want, it's almost like the Bitcoin part is they get it and it's just in the game, and all they care about is the gameplay and the experience and making sure there's no cheats and making sure integrity of the competitions is good. Yeah, it's just like there's so many different verticals in gaming where Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies can be applied, that they don't have to, it's not like a one size fits all thing. So like maybe in our use case, NFTs just is pointless because the games are simple, it's competitive. It's like, when you're with your friends in the pub and you just play like a pub game, it's like super simple but super fun because there's like skin in the game. So yeah, we're definitely look into NFTs. We do talk about it every other day. We brainstorm about it. How would we do it? What technology are we going to use? What other people doing? But I'm happy to wait till there's a huge bear market before fully like, that's when you really find out what's what.
I also think it's like, hey, we can start offering you guys NFTs instead, and we'll just keep the Bitcoin. Like, also happy to do that. But no, there's like some interesting stuff we can do with badges and skins, and we're excited to start experimenting with that. So, I think one thing we like to do is kind of like really very much build in the open and be totally transparent with our community. So, I'm actually excited to try NFTs because I know we'll mess it up and it will be like hilarious and fun, and we can kind of build it alongside our community and see what they want and what works and what doesn't work. And so I don't know if folks have ideas for an NFT they want, or a way they want us to apply it. Like, folks are more than we'll just message us on Telegram or Twitter, and we'll try it for sure.
I almost could see games like Bitcoin games building a way, almost like an internal marketplace first, of like, here are some skins, we're gonna give them an initial initial Bitcoin value, and then from there you can then trade it and almost create like an internal marketplace, and then attach the NFT on the back end. Once there's already like activity there, now my brain's going in a thousand different directions. So
yeah,
I
was
don't
just
know,
gonna
maybe that
yeah,
happens.
no, I think the thing with NFTs is with our like particular games is all the things that you would want an NFT for, you don't need them to do like an MVP of the idea. So like if you wanted to attach Bitcoin to something of value in your game, you only need the NFT. It's like a way to export it from the game. So you can make it in the game and it can just be part of the user's account, and people can sell and trade these things like between themselves, like custodially, just like on Coinbase, where people are trading all these coins all the time. So it's the same as that, but just do it in your own game, trade them. And then if you start seeing traction and people are asking you like, oh, I want to move this car that I've won into this other game, can you make it an NFT to export it or something? Then yeah, then like, but normally the way that I see these like NFTs working, I don't really see a lot of the interoperability between games happening. It's all like ways for people to build an economy around a game, like trustlessly, like in Axie and like all this crazy people paying people to play the games happening. That's where it's been
Totally.
used. The interoperability thing is not true. So you only need the NFT if you need that level of social construct around your game where it has to work like that, I think. I mean, what do you think, Ben? Like where do you see traction in the crypto gaming and the NFTs?
Totally. So as far as the more like on the Ethereum side of the world, where I'm seeing it be huge is people actually representing their identities through NFTs. And like, for example, one of the past guests is building one of the first NFT based films, right? So I was talking to him the other day, and I think it was yesterday actually, and he's doing the initial round of fundraising through NFTs, through different characters. And I was like, dude, everybody who buys one of these initial NFTs is part of this world that you're creating for the movie. Why can't those be the characters in the movie? And he kind of, the little emoji that's the two eyes like looking, he sent me that, and I was like, wait, did I just figure something out that's going to be part of the game? So I don't know, but like things like that, where it's just a cool way to interact, and it's like your chips at the table to get into somewhere that's now represented in a really cool piece of art. That's just rendered visually as an NFT, but really it's like a ticket to get somewhere that can appreciate over time. So like, I mean, the use cases are there are trillions of use cases that I would never be able to figure all of them out, but that's just some of the things that I'm seeing. But I'm really interested in understanding kind of this idea of you already have the value mechanism built in, which is what a lot of the other crypto games are struggling with. So what are the struggles, or like the things that you're tackling that are kind of getting you to the next level and really bringing users in? I mean, is it just kind of the classic game struggle of like, hey, I just have to build the best game ever and it's gameplay first and community first, or is it something totally different?
Yes, it's that what you just said. You got to build a really good game, compete with all other good games, and how it works in mobile is it's basically like you need to have a very big user acquisition budget, so spend a lot of money on advertising, and the way you get a lot of money to spend on advertising is if your game makes a positive return on your investment with that advertising. So if you spend $100,000 on ads, your game makes you $120,000 from the revenue brought in from those new users. So not only if we're competing, we've got to make a game good enough to achieve that magic threshold where the money you spend on ads is less than the money you earn. And we're competing with other companies that do that, but we're also giving money away to all these people as well. So there's that extra complication to the business model that makes it tricky to make it like profitable, because you're always giving money away. And then also, because you're giving money away, you're not only giving it away to people who are just normal players, you're giving it away to hackers and cheats and people who are trying to farm the game and take all the value out. So you have to spend a lot, like, and every game's different. You can't just like, it's not one size fits all to every game and how you manage the cheats. So there's that whole dimension, which makes it kind of a very difficult project to undertake without investment and a team. It's not like an indie person. If an indie developer wanted to make a Bitcoin game, they probably should just make a game, because if they've got a really great game, they don't need to add Bitcoin in it. They can just go on the merits of the game. If they want to do like a Bitcoin game with all the esports or rewards that can go along with it, you have all these extra complications which you need to deal with. But if you can crack it, then you've got a product that no one else has got that is super interesting, which hopefully is what Thunder Games is.
Totally. I want to talk a little bit about esports now, and I'm fascinated by the idea of mobile esports and like how these two things are going to come together, because I came from like the League of Legends world where, it's PC, people are just diehard fans. Like, you get into an arena with like 100,000 other people and watch somebody else on a computer playing a game, and we all think that's cool, right? So, what does esports look like when it meets mobile, and then what does esports look like when it meets mobile and Bitcoin, and then where does that all go? Where is this all going?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
because first off, like, I didn't even know what esports would look like on mobile to begin with. But, I think, and someone in the chat is saying B sports, Bitcoin sports, but which is funny. Jack has some really cool thoughts, and I think, I don't know. I think there's something there. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, yeah, you're not really like, it's almost imagine with you're competing with the people who are the superstars. So you could have a leaderboard of 1 million people all playing this game, and the top 10 people in the world who are playing whatever the mobile game is could be like, it doesn't have to be mobile either, it's any game. So you're watching this esports event online with the top people playing on some leaderboard, but you're also competing in this leaderboard with 1 million people, and you're like 100,000th or something. So you can feel like you're part of it, but you can also win, because with Bitcoin, the prize money can be subdivided literally infinitely. You can have milli satoshis, like the Lightning Network supports milli satoshis, and I'm fingers crossed we get to that point where we need them, because that means Bitcoin is literally like worth a lot of money at that point. But yeah, so like literally you could have a leaderboard with 1 billion people on it, and the person who come last can win a prize, and they're actually competing against the people they're watching, and it can be asynchronous with mobile. So you don't have to, doesn't have to be like within a 30-minute window where everyone's playing the game at the same time. It can be like we do, an event over the whole weekend, so people can play, get their score, see what someone else gets, try and beat them. And yeah, it's kind of like, it's not traditional esports, but it's just a bit more casual, bit of fun. But you feel like you're part of the bigger tournament because you can compete in the same tournament as someone who's earning $1 million at the top, and you just get 1 penny or whatever, but you're in the same tournament.
But I think like something that's also very unique to Bitcoin, where it's like, we have something that's super, super popular in our games. And it's called the one sat gang. So if folks aren't aware, a Satoshi or a sat is a denomination of Bitcoin. And we have like this group of people in our community who I'm sure a bunch are watching. So hello, hashtag one sat gang. Love you guys. But they just get so pumped because they literally win 1 Satoshi, which is like a fraction of a penny, right? And it's like it's a badge of honor, and it's just crazy, these things that you can like make possible, because like one of the great things about Bitcoin is that it is so incredibly divisible, and people love it. So I think that's something that's very unique to Bitcoin, that gets to Jack's point about we can have prize distribution can like kind of be totally rethought, because people can win less than $1 or less than $10. You can do many more prize payouts because like fees are so low. There's just so many things about Bitcoin that I think can be leveraged to like make esports more powerful, or like more equitable to more people. And so that's something like we aren't even scratching the surface of, but our community is like very excited about it. Like, as you can see, I can see Jack laughing because people just like lose their minds over it. So
I love that. I love it. Well, I think this is almost earlier than all the other crypto gaming that I'm seeing on kind of the other side of the cryptoverse, the metaverse, which I think we're all still part of the metaverse. It's all one and the same. I really think everything together culminates in the metaverse. So we're all still together there, regardless of our feelings about different different pieces of it. So we all have that in common. As Bitcoin gaming progresses and becomes more mainstream, because I think it will, and I actually think one of the biggest drivers is going to be what we talked about earlier, which is it seems to be one of the best on ramps to get people into crypto. And so purely from like a company that builds a wallet, they're going to want to market through games, because it's easier to get somebody to play a game than it is to go download a wallet where they don't have anything to store quite yet. But all that to say, like, just give us a snapshot of where you really see this whole industry moving. Like, the people who are going to win, what are they going to do differently than everybody else? And what is it going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years from now?
So I think one thing that you said was that this is earlier than some of the other projects that are kind of building in this bigger space. And I couldn't agree more. And I am happy to admit that, and not that we're earlier, but we are building slower, right? Which I do think it's just because we have many more constraints because we're building with Bitcoin. And I think that's okay. And, I don't think that discredits what we're doing. And, I don't think the fact that I think, what we're doing might outlast everything else, doesn't discredit anything anyone else is building in this space. So, I mean, in the long run, like I foresee so many more people moving over to this space, and kind of, maybe leaving whatever like blockchain they're building on. And I think that my hope is like that's obviously what happens, but I saw that, being working in Bitcoin for so long, went through the whole ICO boom and saw so many developers come over to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, everybody was complaining about it, like not scaling, and then it scaled, and then complaining about the scaling solutions not actually working, and just hearing the same thing over and over again. But now, like, Bitcoin is more powerful than it has ever been. There's just so many institutional investors in the space, and then just institutions putting it on their balance sheet. And so I think it's just Bitcoin developing on top of Bitcoin is always going to lag behind some of these other blockchains. So even with some of the cool stuff that's being built in the space, I mean, you see Bitcoin investments happening all the time, but like those are happening much later than you're seeing a lot of these like other cryptocurrencies get investments. Bitcoin is happening last, but I think that it's not as sexy, it's not as fun, and it's not as easy, so it's always going to be later. So I really do think we need a good bear market to shake things up. We love a good bear market. It's like great time to build and shake things up and bring people over to Bitcoin. So I think there has to be like this this long conversion event that happens, and I really do think people will kind of see the light and see that Bitcoin like really can like open a lot of possibilities. And like I do hope also like we have some fun stuff in the works and some really great products that will make it easier for people Bitcoin in their games. And so hopefully like we can actually make it easier for people to start experimenting with Bitcoin and kind of bring them over to at least start playing with our space, if not totally convert, at least kind of dip their toes. So Jack, do you have thoughts?
Jack, you want to chime in? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, covered quite a lot of things there. One of the points I was going to make was with Bitcoin, with the Bitcoin games like this, there's this kind of unknown phenomenon happening, which is in parallel with Bitcoin to make like drive equality between like the rich and poor. Because in mobile games, like for example, we have like a tournament where someone's going to win 10,000 sats. Because we're a global company, we can't say like in Venezuela the prize is 10 sats and in the US it's 10,000. We can't do that. So when we make more money from advertising in the US than we do in Venezuela, like 10 times more, because the customers are worth more to those advertisers. So those US players are subsidizing the prize money for the Venezuelan like players or like South American players or African players. So the Africa, like all of these countries who like don't have as much wealth as America, are kind of siphoning the wealth away from them. So the Americans are being used for the advertisements or paying for the in-app purchases, and then that money is going proportionally more to those poorer countries because it's worth the Bitcoin's worth more there. So yeah, this the interesting. That's another interesting thing that's happening in terms of crypto gaming, which I don't think a lot of people really talk about, because it does happen in like Axie and that kind of thing as well. That's why it's so popular in the Philippines, because the wealth is being redistributed to those people because they're getting this skill, they've got this skill, and they're earning money for it more than they would normally. So it's just crypto gaming in general is definitely equalizing wealth distribution weirdly.
Right on. So we have a ton of people who are in the chat right now, just totally blowing it up, which is amazing. I'm not sure if y'all can see on your end some of the names here, but y'all want to shout out some of the folks, show some love to the live stream.
Yay! Yes. We have like so many. Our community is amazing, and I like 100% would love for folks to come to our Telegram or our Discord, or at least follow us on Twitter. But yeah, big shout out to Cody. He is like a beautiful little cute cool cat avatar who is such a big supporter of ours and amazing at our game. So shout out to Cody. Lumpy Charcoal, love you, big supporter for a long time. He also has a hat signed by Jack, so there's very few of those That's like
There's only one. I've only ever signed one Thunder Games
yeah.
hat.
That's like our first NFT. That's our first foray into something like NFTs. But yeah, the community is amazing. We've got like some other great people here. Toryman, also a long time like Bitcoin gaming supporter, and has played in a lot of like the esports competitions and stuff. So yeah, we have a great community. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, everybody who is watching and listening, I want to thank y'all for doing so, for hopping in and for blowing up the chat. That is always amazing. Love to see it. Desiree, Jack, I want to thank y'all so much for coming on the show today and really opening my eyes to this whole world of Bitcoin gaming. I mean, I didn't even realize what was possible. So yeah, thank you for educating me and the listeners here. I'd love to just kind of hand it back to y'all. Any parting comments or words of wisdom for us?
well, one, you can go download Thunder Bay, which is our new game that came out today, and it's like an amazing cat who goes and drinks cocktails by the ocean, and it's a bubble shooter style game, so it's super fun and relaxing. Definitely my style. We have 2 other games. You can find them all on thunder.gg, or just find them in Google Play or the App Store. Also follow us on Twitter at Thunder Games, and that's THNDR, and join our Telegram. And also, if there are any cool game devs, great game devs looking for a job in Bitcoin gaming, we are also hiring for some other positions. But if you're just generally interested, DM us, and we'd love to see if there's a good fit. We're growing the team. So, Jack, anything?
Well, ditto.
Awesome. And then Lumpy Charcoal was just asking a little bit about CGI, so I want to make sure I address that. Yeah, Lumpy. So I basically got into the space and said, I, as usual, want to learn from people who are way smarter than myself. And for example, Desiree and Jack. And so I started a podcast. This is my 3rd podcast at this point. I've interviewed billionaires, New York Times bestselling authors, Emmy Award winners, truly just amazing people. And when I recognized the power of crypto gaming and what this means for the future of humanity, I mean, I really think that with infinity percent conviction that the metaverse is humanity's end game. Like, we're going there. We're already all on the internet. We're addicted to it. It's not going away. We use that for life. The metaverse is like the end game of the internet, which means it's the end game of humanity. And so it's our responsibility as people who are building that to build it in the way we want to see it being built. So I feel like the best way to do that is to learn about the people who are building it, learn the best things from the best people, really educate ourselves to the highest degree, and then we can move forward and build this amazing world out together as a community, because communities are the most important. And that's really the impetus for the show and what this whole thing's about. So thank you for the question, Lumpy. Yeah, just want to thank Desiree, thank you, and Jack again. Thank you, everybody who's watching and listening. We will end the stream now, but I will see y'all on the next episode. Take care.